Chapter 2. I took the train to North London on a cold, grey morning. The journey felt very long. My stomach felt tight like a hard knot. I was going to the Grove for my job interview. When I walked from the train station, the streets slowly changed. There were fewer trees and more concrete. The buildings looked tired and dirty. Then I finally saw it. The Grove did not look like a place for healing. It looked like a terrible, dark prison. It was a large, ugly brick building surrounded by a very high wall. At the top of the wall, there was sharp metal wire. There was only one way inside, a heavy steel gate. I stood outside for a minute. The wind blew cold air against my face. I felt a small shiver go down my back. This was the place where they locked away the broken people. This was where Alicia Berenson lived now. I pressed the buzzer next to the gate. A loud electric noise answered, and the heavy metal gate slowly clicked open. I walked inside. The courtyard was empty and sad. The grass was brown and dying. Inside, the hospital smelled like strong cleaning chemicals and old cabbage soup. The air felt heavy. A security guard checked my bag and my ID card. Then, a quiet secretary took me to the director's office. Professor Diomedes was the manager of the Grove. He was an older man with bright white hair and a very tired face. He wore an expensive suit, but it looked a little too big for his body, as if he had lost a lot of weight recently. When I walked into his office, he was looking out the dirty window. "Ah, Theo Faber," he said. His voice was deep and smooth, with a slight accent. "Sit down, please." I sat in a hard wooden chair. He sat behind his large messy desk. "Your resume is very good, Theo," Diomedes said. He looked at my papers through his reading glasses. "You have a safe job at a nice clinic. Why do you want to work here?" "The Grove is a difficult place. We do not have enough money. The government wants to close us down next year. Everyone is stressed and angry." I took a deep breath. I needed a good answer. "I want to help the people who need it the most," I said, trying to sound confident. "The people that society throws away." Diomedes looked directly into my eyes. He was a very smart man. I felt like he could see inside my head. "That is very noble," he said slowly. "But working here is dangerous. These patients are not just sad, Theo. They are very sick, and some are very violent. They can hurt you." "I understand," I replied. "I am ready for the challenge, then." I took a big risk. I had to mention her. "I have read a lot about Alicia Berenson," I said carefully. "I know she is a patient here. I believe I can help her." Diomedes frowned. The deep lines on his face became deeper. "Alicia," he sighed heavily. "Many doctors have tried to help Alicia, Theo." "I have tried. She is completely closed. She is like a locked box with no key." "Are you sure you are not just looking for fame?" "She is our most famous patient. Many doctors want to write a book about her." "No," I said quickly. "I do not care about the newspapers or fame. I only care about the patient." "I want to try." Diomedes stared at me for a long time. The room was very quiet. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, he nodded his head. "Okay, Theo, I will give you a chance. You have the job, but be careful. Do not let her pull you down into her dark world." I started my new job the next Monday. I was excited, but also very nervous. The hospital was a strange, frightening world. The doors were always locked. Every time we moved from one room to another, a staff member had to use a heavy set of metal keys. Click, clack, click, clack. That was the constant sound of the Grove. On my first day, I met Yuri. Yuri was the head psychiatric nurse. He was a big, strong man from Eastern Europe. He had a friendly smile, but his eyes were always watching, always alert. "Welcome to the madhouse, my friend," Yuri said. He shook my hand. His hand was very strong and rough. "Stay close to me today. I will show you how things work." Yuri gave me a tour of the building. We walked down long, brightly lit hallways. The lights hummed with a low, annoying sound. We walked past the patient rooms. I looked through the small glass windows in the doors. Some patients were sleeping on narrow beds. Some were rocking back and forth on the floor. Some were talking to people who were not there. It is sad, Yuri said quietly as we walked. Most of them will never leave this place. They are broken forever. We just try to keep them safe. We give them their medicine. We make sure they eat their food. Does Alicia eat? I asked. Yuri stopped walking. He looked at me carefully. Ah, the famous Alicia. Yes, she eats. But she is a ghost. She takes a lot of heavy medication. The doctors give her strong pills to keep her calm. She just sleeps and sits. Sleeps and sits. She is not really alive anymore. Hearing this made me angry. The doctors here were not trying to cure her. They were just hiding her. They were putting her mind to sleep with drugs because she was too difficult. Later that afternoon, I sat in my small new office. It had no windows, just 4 blank walls, a desk, and 2 cheap chairs. I asked the secretary for Alicia's medical file. The file was very thick. It was full of reports from doctors, nurses, and the police. I read every page carefully. I read about the night of the murder again. I read about the trial. I read the notes from the other therapists at the Grove. Patient is unresponsive. Patient refuses to make eye contact. Patient shows no emotion. Every note said the exact same thing. Failure. Everyone had failed to reach her. I closed the heavy file. My heart was beating hard in my chest. I felt a mix of fear and electricity. Tomorrow, I was going to meet her. The woman from my dreams. The silent killer. I hardly slept that night. The next morning, I found Yuri in the staff kitchen. I asked him to take me to Alicia. Are you sure, Theo? Yuri asked, holding his coffee cup. She is in the day room right now. It is loud in there. The other patients are awake and active, I am sure, I said. I need to introduce myself to her today. We walked down the hallway. Yuri used his heavy keys to open the door to the day room. The room was large, with cheap plastic chairs and tables scattered around. The television was on, playing a loud cartoon, but nobody was watching it. A woman was crying loudly in the corner. An old man was walking in circles, muttering to himself. The air felt hot, heavy, and smelled like sweat. I looked around the room. Then I saw her. Alicia Berenson was sitting alone at a small table near a window with strong metal bars. She was looking outside, but there was nothing to see except the grey sky and the dirty brick wall. I almost did not recognize her. She looked so different from the beautiful, rich woman in the newspaper pictures. She was wearing loose, ugly hospital clothes. They were light blue and much too big for her thin body. She looked sick. Her collarbone stuck out sharply. Her hair, which used to be long, beautiful, and shiny, was now messy, dirty, and cut short. It hung in front of her face, hiding her eyes. She looked completely broken. The heavy medication made her body slump forward in the chair. She looked like an old, forgotten doll that someone had thrown away in a corner. I will wait by the door, Yuri said gently. Be careful, Theo. Sometimes they can surprise you. I nodded and walked slowly across the room. My shoes made a soft sound on the plastic floor. I stopped when I reached her small table. I stood there for a moment, waiting for her to look up at me. She did not move. She did not even blink. She just stared at the brick wall outside. I gently pulled out the plastic chair opposite her. It made a loud scraping sound against the floor, but she ignored it completely. I sat down. Now, I was very close to her. I could smell a faint scent of cheap soap and unwashed clothes. Hello, Alicia, I said. My voice was quiet and calm, but inside my chest, my heart was racing. My name is Theo Faber. I am a psychotherapist. I am your new doctor. I waited. I watched her pale face. I looked for a small sign, a tiny movement in her eyes, a twitch in her finger, a change in her breathing, anything to show she heard me. There was absolutely nothing. Her face was like a blank piece of paper. Her eyes were empty, staring straight through the window. It was like I was invisible. It was like she was completely deaf and blind to the world around her. The silence between us was heavy and thick. It was not a peaceful, quiet silence. It was a dark, aggressive wall. I could feel the strange, cold energy coming from her. It was pushing me away. "I know you do not want to talk right now," I said slowly. I kept my voice very gentle. "That is perfectly okay. You do not have to speak today. But I want you to know that I am here to help you. I am not going to give up on you, Alicia. We are going to work together." I sat with her for 20 minutes. I did not try to talk anymore. I just sat in the heavy silence with her. I wanted her to get used to me. I wanted her to know that I was not afraid of her silence. I wanted to show her that I was patient. But as the slow minutes passed, the silence started to press against my chest. It felt suffocating, like I could not breathe properly. I realized that Professor Diomedes was absolutely right. She was a locked box, and the key was lost in a very deep, dark ocean. Finally, I stood up from the chair. "I will see you tomorrow, Alicia," I said softly. She still did not look at me. I turned around and walked back to Yuri. When the heavy metal door locked behind us with a loud clack, I let out a long breath. I felt incredibly tired, as if I had been running for miles. I had finally met the silent patient. The real journey had started, but looking into her empty, dead eyes, I knew this was going to be the hardest thing I had ever done in my entire life. The darkness inside her was very deep, and I was going to have to walk far into the terrible darkness to find her.